After 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians are broke and the government is broken. Here we have 1 in 5 Canadians skipping meals because they can't afford the price of food. 9 in 10 young people say they can't afford housing. No wonder the Prime Minister has doubled the rent, doubled needed mortgage payments, and doubled down payments. Crime is raging out of control on our streets, and there's the biggest federal strike in Canadian history. What's the Prime Minister's priority? Why another vacation? This time to New York to hang out with the people who have lots of money but not a lot of common sense. When will the Prime Minister and his government get back to work?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
In the Leaders of Opposition comment, I believe I heard he's asking what is happening at the table at this time, and what's happening is that we are negotiating. We are trying to find a reasonable deal for public servants that will be fair, and we are working day in and day out to get to that deal. We also respect the workers as they are striking, but we know that the best deal that we will find is at the table. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Well, they consider the best deal to be paying 50% more tax dollars on bureaucracy and end up with a strike regardless. The average Canadian household has to spend $1,300 more in federal tax just for bureaucracy, and they're not getting the services that they're paid for. This is on top of 40-year highs in inflation, a doubling in housing costs, and jobs that are leaving our country because the Prime Minister's gatekeepers are sending them away. So why doesn't the Prime Minister turn his plane around, get back to Ottawa, do his job, and get his government back to work?
Speaker, the Prime Minister spent $21 billion more on public services that brought Canadians the biggest federal strike in Canadian history. There are more than 150,000 people blocking streets, they're blocking buildings, and they're now blocking critical infrastructure. Canadians trying to get a passport, call immigration, or talk to anyone at CRA can't do it because of this government's incompetence. He paid $21 billion to cause this strike. He took off on a private jet to lecture the world about climate change with the fancy people in New York. Will somebody kindly tell us how much it will cost for Canadians for him to end this strike?
The Honourable Minister of Families.
Speaker, in difference with the Conservative members of Parliament, on this side we actually respect workers and we respect their rights. We are at the negotiating table right now to ensure that we get a fair deal for Canadian taxpayers as well as for the hard-working public servants who have been there for Canadians, particularly in their moment of need, particularly during the worst economic and health crisis that we have seen in a generation. Mr. Speaker, we are going to get a good agreement that is going to support our workers as well as Canadian taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, nobody is disputing the hard work of the public service. They are simply flabbergasted by the incompetence of this Prime Minister and this government. Right. He grew the public service by 53%. He hired his friends to do the work, and he still can't assure Canadians that they can get through to CRA or even get a passport in this country. He's on vacation again, far away from this strike. When will he and his government get back to work?
That's right. The Honourable Minister of Families.
I think what's particularly concerning about what the member opposite is saying is that the public service grew at a time when Canadians were in their darkest hour. That's Mr. Right. Speaker, we were talking about a once-in-a-generation pandemic. We supported, and those same public servants supported 8.5 million Canadians to access the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Those same public servants supported Canadians to receive the Canada Emergency Business Accounts support. Mr. Speaker, they were there in Canada's time of need. We believe in collective bargaining. We believe in the right to strike, and we believe and we will get a good deal for the public servants and for Canadians.
Mr. Speaker, there's an old saying, you can't win if you don't try. In order for this Liberal government to resolve the PSAC strike, rescue hundreds of Canadians stranded in Sudan, or answer basic questions of accountability about the Trudeau Foundation, this Prime Minister has to at least try. But I don't think the Prime Minister is trying too hard to solve these problems if he's hobnobbing with celebrities in New York City. Mr. Speaker, when is this Prime Minister going to get back to work and resolve these problems?
Speaker, I just want to set the record straight. It's important that Canadians know that consular services helping on the crisis of Sudan right now are 24/7. Their strike is not affecting these services, as of course there's 130 people right now at Global Affairs helping Canadians stranded in Sudan, and we'll work until every single one of them are back. Thank you.
That's right. Most of the public service workers on strike are women, some of them trying to raise their family on $40,000 a year. And what is the Prime Minister doing? Announcing funding for international organizations while cutting $150 million from women's shelters here in Canada and refusing to reach a fair agreement with PSAC workers. He has to support women internationally and here at home. He must do both. Does he really think that he's fooling Canadians with his fake feminism?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government has always been there for women and will continue to be there for women. When the pandemic struck, Mr. Speaker, we saw what was happening. We knew that grassroots organizations had to keep their doors open. We responded with $300 million in emergency funding, Mr. Speaker. That work continues with the action plan to end gender-based violence, with $500 million on the table. I am negotiating with provinces and territories right now to get this done. We have been there for women. We will always be there for women.
Bravo.